Yeah. Blast it, we're going live early. Howdy, everyone on the Shadow of the Hawk. Why are you doing this? I've been sitting here for the last like 10 minutes. The lighting was this. It was perfect. And then it decided, why are you flaring up? What is wrong with you? I've just been sitting here, chilling on my Magic Smart Box. This damn light. Okay, are we good? Alright, that looks good. Howdy, everyone on the Shadow of the Hawk. Sorry about that little technical difficulties right there. And as you can tell by the title, I will be doing some book reviews. I've got 3 books right here, going from my right to left. You've got that's actually kind of the lighting makes it kind of hard to see. So you've got Shadow of the Conqueror by Shadden Brooks right here. You've got England's Martyr by Alfred Reed, and then you've got one of the best science fiction books I've been told, Halo: The Fall of Reach by Eric Nyland. Now, I don't know a lot about Eric Nyland, uh, very much at all. I do know a little bit about these two authors right here. I know Shadden Brooks. He is a YouTuber, Shadiversity. He does a lot of content. He's apparently part of like the Nerdrotic crew over on YouTube and stuff. And apparently he's working on not only a sequel to this novel, but also a new, completely original novel. So that's a thing to look out for. Then you have England's Martyr by Alfred Reed. Alfred Reed is a really, really cool dude from over the pond over in England. I mean, if you check his Twitter page, he's got a lot of base takes. He's always like trying to spread awareness about some of the stuff going on in his country, in his region of the world. Um, if I do remember correctly, he is either he's a reporter or he is a retired reporter, and he's decided to work on basically using English history to reinforce some English values, as well as tell as best he can, true to English story using the history of his homeland, being England's Martyr, the first book in the Ironside trilogy, which will be following the rise of Edmund Ironside, a lesser known but still fairly important king of England. So, seeing as I'm talking about that first, let's talk about England's Martyr first. So this is a really, really, really solid book. It's about 500 pages. A very the freaking light won't let it. Okay, hold on. Let me. Yeah, you can see that. Like the word is just fairly. The, this damn light makes it so hard to. It's the light of God. Okay, trust me. Howdy, Bones Malone. How you doing, man? Howdy, Gunsmoke Lindsay. Yeah. Uh, good to see you, man. This is the first time you've caught one of my streams, right, man? Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure this is the first time I've seen you hop in. Good to have you, dude. But so yeah, England's Martyr. The story is set around 1008, 1008, yeah, 1008 England, where you basically have had the coasts of England being reaved and savaged by the Scandinavian raiders, in modern terms known as Vikings. Whether they would have called themselves that at the time is not really known, because the term Viking comes from the action to go a Viking, which is reaving, pillaging, and raiding. So, for the sake of simplicity, I will say Viking because that is the modern term, even though it's not historically accurate. But so the book follows a few different characters. This one is predominantly following an individual named Alaric, who is a sort of middle level nobleman in the English hierarchy. The other main characters include Edmund Ironside, who is the main focus of the trilogy. The current king, is it Ethelstan or Ethelred? Ethelred. Sorry, there's too many Ethels in in English history. Too many Ethels. As King Ethelred is actively letting the realm fall to ruin due to sheer incompetence and cowardice. Um, Allowing the stage for Edmund to rise up, as well as individuals that you may recognize from a certain popular anime, Thorkel the Tall and Svein the Forkbeard, to rip their claws into England and rip and tear chunks of meat out to enjoy for their own personal ventures and gains. And you have a bunch of other smaller characters, and it's basically it's a little bit of a mystery, a little bit of an action thriller, and a little bit of a not entirely a political soapbox, but there is definitely an element of counter politics, counter culture, if you would. Let me explain by reading the words from the man himself, Alfred Reed, a few words at the beginning of his book. England's Martyr is a work of historical fiction set during the sequence of events from the Battle of Ringmere in 1010 to Svein Forkbeard's invasion of 1013. While some of the characters portrayed are indeed fictional, many are not, and their story sets the stage for the emergence of the English hero and legend Edmund Ironside, who is, of course, the main focus of the rest of the upcoming Ironside trilogy. In writing this book, I wanted to make a couple of points. The first is that history matters. It really, really matters. In an age where we're inundated with so called historical dramas and shows, historical and shows were quoted, it seems real history has become more remote, or has at least struggled to avoid becoming warped and sensationalized by distinctly modern agendas. That's something that has always annoyed me, especially when the end result disrespects the lives of those who lived, or indeed attempts to portray their lives in a partial or dishonest fashion. Narratives set during the so called Viking Age seem to be particularly vulnerable to this. Whilst I am not attempting to single anyone out for criticism, it is the case that modern portrayals of this epoch tend to focus on a glorified image of the Vikings that seem to imply their shocking violence was somehow admirable or justified. Look at the Vinland saga as another example. Yes, the show does frame Vikings as not necessarily good guys, but it also does kind of ignore. It also does kind of portray them a little bit badass, a little bit, just a smidge. Um, this is a problem for many reasons, not purely because of the obvious immorality of such a thing, but because the impression conveyed is inaccurate and, as I imply above, sensationalizes an issue that should be taken seriously. I'm not remotely happy with seeing history so abused, and I don't think I'm alone. England suffered greatly because of these Vikings, itself a Norse word used in an activity, not an ethnicity, and one the English would have rarely used. The reality of the reality of that needs to be properly understood. England's Martyr is, of course, not written by a historian, nor is it an attempt to recreate a supposedly quote unquote pure and objective historical narrative, something that would be beyond my capabilities. It does, however, attempt to portray an episode in English history in a serious manner, one that tries to address the complexities of a nation at war whilst still making room for the softer, more contemplative aspects of faith, family, and friendship. It's also the case that Edmund Ironside specifically has not received the attention he's due. He lived, he suffered, he strove, all for the sake of saving his country from foreign dominion, yet there's not one statue of him in England, and most Englishmen will be unaware of his existence. This series attempts to shed some light on what kind of man he might have been, and this first book here introduces him as the troubled yet heroic individual I suspect he likely was. I hope it's of interest to Englishmen and all others. So that is the mission statement behind the book. That is his goal behind the book. Do I think he succeeded? I think he very much did. I am not a I do not know this period of history very well, but I have spoken with Alfred on Twitter, like even before I knew he was an author. We met during like a little Twitter bitch fight, and we thought the other was based, and so we followed each other, and we would converse. We'd meet each other up on Twitter and talk, and it was yeah. And then I found out he was an author. I wanted to get his book to support an individual that was based, and I read his book, and it's really freaking good. The action scenes draw you in, and they're very brutal and bloody, and like okay, I'm not saying that it's like they're like it's good that they're bloody and brutal. Well, it is good that they're bloody and brutal, but it's not like how do I? Okay, I'm phrasing this really badly. The battle scenes are incredibly well written and they draw you in, but they do not glorify the violence within them. The men that are defending their homeland and defending their families are absolutely glorified and risen up to a pillar above. But the act of fighting, the act of having to engage in this kind of violence in these last stands is like consistently, at least from my personal reading, displayed as a failing of the monarch and how everything could be better, should be better, but it's unfortunately is not. The actual prose, very solid. There were no moments. Like I had moments where I was at work where I would like look down, I would read, I'd look back up at the little clock to determine if I have to go back from my break, and minutes would have passed. And I was just so enthralled in the damn book because it's just such a good read. Like even though it's 500 pages and it's super freaking dense, like look at that. Look at that. iPhone for scale. Look at that. It's still like it. I was. It was not a slog. I was enjoying it. It was a really, really good read. The characters are all very interesting and very fascinating with a lot of layers to them. They are very human. Not a single one. Even Thorkel the Tall, who is one of the Vikings that was mentioned as overly sensationalized and where their violence is glorified. Even Thorkel has a level of character to him. He's not just a mindless savage brute. He's intelligent. He knows how to wage war. But furthermore than that, there is this honor code to him. I'm not going to say specifically what he does, but there are moments in the book where he does display not quite what we would refer to as like honor in the case of the chivalric code, like not how you read about it in Leading the Rebellion, but it's still there. There, he's more than just a mindless savage. He's not just Angron from the Horus Heresy series, which makes sense. He was a real human. There'd be a lot more complexity to him. Is there anything else? Like, I don't want to get into spoilers too much because like really there's like does it break it doesn't really break the wheel in a lot of like the plot beats. So the plot I can't really sell with like the basic plot beats. I'd have to sell with some of the spoiler content and that stuff. Oh, this no, that is also a spoiler. Hmm. We'll say what I will say is very early on, the book is not afraid to give the main character a pretty massive, like, despite the main character making every decision correctly and fighting, or a main character, excuse me, making like the right decisions and fighting like hell and having the determination of a freaking God fearing man. It doesn't go so well for him in a very specific fight, and it ends in a very horrendous way for multiple reasons. But yeah, it's definitely a read. It is definitely, I mean, name Alfred Reed. Alfred Reed's book is definitely worth the read, in my opinion. If there's anyone in the chat who wants like some specific questions they want answered, I can answer them. But like in regards to like a book review, without getting into too many spoilers, that feels about appropriate. I may go into spoilers a little bit further on into the stream, but right now, yeah, like I recommend it. It's a very good book. You can get it on Amazon. Um, it's solid. Next up, we're gonna go to something that is on the not the exact opposite spectrum, but I'm gonna have some more negatives to say about this book. Shadow of the Conqueror it's not a bad book. It is absolutely not a bad book. And a lot of the criticisms that are out there about it are more more so to discredit Shad than they are to actually talk about the book, in my opinion. It's I mean, it is also incredibly dense, but I mean, the density of the words is it's like a good. It's not as dense. It's not as word dense, right? Yeah, no, it's definitely not as word dense. The font is a lot bigger in here. So I think it's about as many pages. Yeah, it's about as many. It's about 500 pages, but significantly less dense. You can get through this a lot faster than you can get through England's Martyr. But unlike England's Martyr, there are points in this book where I had to set it down and get distracted by something else because Shad is very good at coming up with really, really creative ideas. Like the world he has made is very creative, very fascinating, and there's definitely a lot of layers to it. And the characters are interesting when they are the characters they are. And this is like the biggest this is the biggest complaint that I don't really see a lot of people bringing up when they do complain about the book is Shad is more focused on showing off this cool world he made in a lot of instances and all the cool mechanics within it and all the cool politics and world building than he is about telling the story. He still tells the story. This isn't like a reading an encyclopedia. Like you still have a story, you still have a rising action, you still have characters. But there are moments where like Dalen, the main character, is this snarky, narcissistic, very intellectual, somewhat erudite, crass-mouthed individual and you get you get many instances where you get that on full display, but then you'll have other instances where he turns into a textbook entry and then another character. Howdy, Rez. Yes, I am, and I'm burning a sacred cow. Why that light? Sorry. Good to see you, man. Hope you're doing good. But yeah, I'm burning a sacred cow because I'm not praise. I'm not like. Don't get me wrong. It's not a bad book. I'd recommend it. Pick it if you enjoy like Industrial Revolution era with magic kind of stuff and some really interesting magical mechanics and some good world building. It's a solid read. The main character is an interesting case study that I'm gonna get into, and I'm gonna have to break into a lot more spoilers with Shadow of the Conqueror to break down the flaws. So spoiler warning for Shadow of the Conqueror. Um, But where was I? What was I talking? Oh yeah, so like you'll have moments where Shad wants to like discuss the politics of his world or the history of his world or explain how Darkstone allows for air travel. And a character will start off talking like a character. They'll start to off talking like Dalen, like Arik. Arik? Ararik? I think his name was Ararik. Hold on. Now I'm questioning myself. Ararik. Is your name Ararik? No, I'm like 90% sure your name is Ararik. Ararik. Ahrek. 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 Where Ahrek, who is like very somewhat philosophical, kind of like, older guy, like he's got like I can't really describe it, but there's like a distinct personality there. And then textbook happens whenever the story needs to get more complicated. Um and Yeah, so it's definitely one of those things where and I've noticed myself falling into this trap personally as well, where like you'll want to explain something really, really important, and then you find out that you've gone 4 paragraphs and it reads like a textbook entry, like you're reading a fifth grade history book. That ties into another problem I have with the book is he repeats a lot of things. The Shadow series by Brent Weeks, Assassin Pseudo Magic, think in the realm of the game Thief. All right, let me pull it up. Shadow series by Brent Weeks. I found this on the Googles. So everyone, you can thank Rez for the recommendation. Click that link right there, and it'll take you to the reading list, the books in order, and you'll be able to read up all the information on that. Thank you, Rez. But so yeah, what was it? I mentioned the length of stuff. Oh, he'll repeat things, and this is kind of getting into the spoiler territory. So, howdy, Reed. Uh, I'm I'm assuming I'm assuming Daniel Reed. You're either related to Alfred Reed, or Daniel or Alfred is a pseudonym. Welcome. No, you're good, Res. No, Res. This is me we're talking about. Okay, I've got the mind of a hummingbird and the mouth of a freaking butterfly. Like everything is just sporadic and insane. Don't worry about it, man. Um, but God, where was I? Okay, so this is getting into spoilers for Shadow of the Conqueror. So are you ready? If you want to read the book, three, two, one. All right, good to know, man. Good to know. Yeah. I did your book. Yeah. So I touched on your book. I reviewed your book earlier. It's freaking solid. It's a very solid read. You did an amazing job. I don't know. I can't really speak to how historically accurate it is because I don't know that period very well, man. Actually, here, let me get. You know what? Let me grab your Amazon page. Uh, England's Martyr, Amazon. Yeah. I probably should have done that earlier in the stream. My bad, bro. My bad. There we go. There we go. So if you guys want to check out England's Martyr, check it out right there on Amazon. Like I said earlier, really good series. I didn't get too deep into like exactly what I liked. Like I didn't get into the details of say Alaric, of Edmund, of Ethelred. Like I didn't get into a lot of the details because people need to like I really want people to read your book. And it's also only been out for like a couple of months. So yeah, no, I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the second one, and then when I get the second one, I'm going to be waiting for the third one. It's like I said earlier, 500 pages, really really dense. It's really really dense wordage. Did not feel like that. Like unlike like I mentioned earlier, unlike reading this, I was soaring through pages. I was voraciously consuming like what you would put to paper. Whereas Shadow of the Conqueror, still a phenomenal book. I still or not a phenomenal book. A good book. I still recommend it. Blocks of text that were just hard to work through, hard to chew. Not so much this. I could definitely tell that you were like a journalist, right, man? It's been so long since I've looked at your freaking Twitter profile. I'm like 90% sure. It's very clear that you spend a large amount of your life writing consistently with like a lot of people editing it. So very solid work. Um, yeah. So back to Shadow of the Conqueror. It is a so the main character Dalen is given a second chance at life, effectively, and consistently you have moments where he regrets. You will have the same conflict being repeated over and over and over again. I don't want to be how I was. I don't want to be how I was. I don't want to be how I was. And just consist like it just bang, bang, bang beats you over the freaking head. Like the admiral from Rebel Moon, like when he walks up to like the king of the squid people, and it's like use a bomb bad cringe, and just like that's how it feels because you've got like, oh wait, I murdered a man because my temper. That's bad. That's really bad. Oh no, oh no, and then later he kills a character and he finds out something very important about that character, and it's like, oh no, I did a bad thing. I did a bad thing, and this is like when I was like that. It's coming out in December. No, you're good, man. You're good. I like the chat talking. It lets I like the chat talking. It's really good. I like interacting with people. If I was a lot less paranoid, I'd probably do what a friend of mine, Amira, does and toss the StreamYards link into the chat. But England's Fury, bro. I'm excited. I am freaking excited. That's gonna be great. Uh, oh, what? Didn't mean to click anything. Um, and then like there's a moment where you have a character where a teenage girl wants to reward the young attractive man for saving her life in the way that a Pulp Fiction novel does. And he breaks down because in a past life, he was a very, very bad person when it came to girls younger than teenage girls because he was, the emperor of everything. He could do whatever he wanted, and that made him. And he did some very, very bad things. And then you get the same thing when he meets a person who he hurt, and then they just you could shave off like a good maybe 20 pages. That's only one specific example. Like there are multiple times where like he repeats the same thing or repeats like the same joke over and over again, or like something gets kind of like talked over twice, and it could just shave off 20 pages. It just shaves off 20 pages. Um, yeah, and there's also like a lot of moments which you can tell are just there to show off the world building and show off his cool world. Which okay, that's fine, that's awesome. But you're also like it's basically an excuse to do a text block. So frankly, this book could be 20 to 50 pages shorter, maybe even 100 if you really wanted to tighten it up. Like it's very clear, at least to me, that he wrote it. He did like some editing to make sure like everything, like all the grammar was good, and then he passed it off to either he either didn't get a beta reader or he got one of his subordinates, one of the guys that worked for him, to do it, and they were just like they wanted to make sure Shad was happy, so they didn't really critique it too much. Um, with those out of the way, it was still a good read. I like the world Shad has created. It's a very like the starting concept. The starting concept is a world of floating islands. How do you make that work? And then how do you make and then a world where it's always day? Then it's a world of floating islands and a world that is always day, except when it's night, and night is an apocalyptic event. The changes that you need to consider for that, like okay, so if it's an island, right? If it's a floating island and you have water that falls off the side, where does that water go? Well, the way he fixes this kind of thing is you've got a barrier, a magical barrier on the bottom that when you pass through, you are put back at the top of the world and you continue to fall. So if you have like a waterfall falling off the side of the world, that waterfall will fall down at the exact same spot, consistently repeating the cycle. As to if it's always day, how do they track time? You've got like this one chunk of rock that is consistently falling down and down and down and down, and every civilization is able to see it, and every civilization is based their calendars around it. They call it day. They instead of calling a 24-hour period. Howdy, Suka Nuka. And yes, actually, that is a well. I mean, to be fair, you would probably die long before that happens. But yes, you could. You absolutely could. And that's a thought that goes through the character's head as he's doing it because he actually jumps off the edge in an attempt at seppuku. Um, and so you get that like kind of thinking going through his head and like it's a very Shad comes up with good ways to explain the world building and show off his world and drop exposition. But when it comes to actually giving the exposition, it is very technical. It's not very, it doesn't flow very well. It's not very organic. This, yeah, it's about 800 pages. But as I was saying earlier, word density, it's not too bad. Like that's not very dense. If you want to compare it to another person in the chat, Alfred Reed or Daniel Reed as he is in the chat, this is Alfred's book, which Zuka, if you like reading, I do recommend. England's Martyr. It's got 500 pages. It is dense. It is a dense book. There is a lot of like wordage in here. Trust me, bro. If you like historical fiction, you're gonna be like, it's a page turner. It's really freaking good. Um, yeah, I like the motive because Shad is an individual who likes swords. If you go to his channel, you can tell he really really likes swords, and he likes fighting. And so he included in his world a reason why everyone carries swords at all times, and why even women, for instance, are able to be woman warriors. The reason is once it what like every like couple of decades or so, or every couple of centuries, it's the timeline isn't really specifically set, like how in between, but every periodic number of years, night happens. And in this world, if you are exposed to darkness for long enough, you become a this monstrous creature that wants to kill humans because that's what monstrous creatures do. And so when night comes, every single person is conscripted to fight the monsters that come out of the dark. And so everyone knows how to fight man, woman, child. And it's really freaking cool because you have like, okay, Shad wants everyone to have swords and everyone must be armed to fight. But what is that going to do for the world? Well, you're going to have very codified rules about dueling. You're going to have different standards for weapons that can actually be used for dueling. And then you're also going to have, okay, well, the whole point of training for these duels is to fight the monsters. So you're not going to like, for instance, a point that's made is to kill these things. The shades, I believe, if I remember correctly, what they're called. You need to put massive cuts and massive lacerations across them. So something like a rapier, which is normally associated with like duels in real history, something like a rapier is not really going to be a tool you want to use on a shade. So it is considered a faux pas to use a rapier in a duel. But some people still do it because for them it's more about being the greatest duelist ever rather than actually doing what dueling is meant to do, being trained for fighting the shades. Um, and then you have like, okay, well, you've got this thing called Darkstone, and it's how everything levitates. And if you mess with Darkstone in specific ways, or you expose it to other things like Sunstone, I believe is the term, or Lightstone, something like that, it will move around. Okay, that is how it powers flight. But it can also be used, and Shad accounts for this, to make a projectile tosser. However, the reason why the projectile tossers have not completely erased that sword-loving society is a projectile tosser will do piercing damage, like a rapier does. It's not going to work against the shades. So you still have to have the sword training. And because more people are training with swords, if you're going to have a clash of cultures, people are going to pick up the weapons that they know how to use best, and that's going to be the swords. And then the magic system is very video gamey, but it's still pretty cool. There's definitely a level of thought put into it, where basically you can basically like empower yourself using light, and it basically I can't really explain it without using gamer terms. But you have like skill points, and you can basically like buff up different limbs and stuff, buff up different attributes and different abilities and stuff like that. And Dalen because of coming back from the dead, is naturally more powerful. He's naturally more powerful with using this magic. However, what makes Dalen, and I'm going to get into the Dalen character actually now because I think he's a very good character, is Dalen is wicked smart. He is a Napoleon, Aristotle, Leonardo da Vinci that lived a full life and got reborn into the body of a 20-year-old. Yeah, like that is a very, very, very like stacked list of bonuses right there. And Shad, for to his credit, manages this decently. Consistently having the fact that like Dalen is, he was in his 80s, and then a couple like days before the story's happening, he's now back in the body of a 20-year-old. He's acting as though he was in his 80s when he's not in his 80s anymore. When he's got the look of a 20-year-old. So like he'll encounter people who are like 30 or 40 and be like, "You dumb kid, don't know what you're talking about. You're young enough to be my grandson, sir." Well, shut up, man. Shut up, man. But also because he's like this overconfident, narcissistic type guy, the fact that he's 20 gets in the way of like all like he is a master swordsman. He is a he knows how to fly sky ships. He knows how to manufacture and maintain sky ships. He knows history and politics better than anyone else should. He's able to make these leaps and conclusions involving the magic system in a way no one else should be, except Dalus the Conqueror, the name he was given in his previous life, wherein he basically was a mix of Stalin, Mao, Mustache Man, um, Epstein, and a dash of Simone Bolivar thrown in there for good measure, and did everything you could assume such a man would. Oh, also like all the other mixture, like the Leonardo da Vinci, and then who's a really good swordsman in history? Insert some really, really good swordsman in history. I don't really know. Arthur Dane. He's also got some Arthur Dane mixed in there. Let's toss in a little bit of fantasy. And so you have this mixture is ruling an empire for like a good 20 years and becomes so disconnected and so apathetic to humanity that he's willing to do some pretty messed up things. And because everyone's terrified of him, they do some messed up things hoping that he'll like what they're doing, meaning he is like the absolute worst kind of human being. He has got a body count. Probably no, Genghis Khan still probably beats his body count. Let's be real. Genghis Khan is the greatest of all Khans after all. But he's definitely up there. Like he probably beats out Tamerlane by a good little bit. Um and then also, the Epstein angle. Yeah. Yeah, Dylan was a bastard. He was not a good person. He was not a good person. And the book focusing on him trying to be redeemed is very, very fascinating. I love villain characters being redeemed. If you're willing to be stupid and go looking, one of my first ever bits of fan fiction I posted was following my Fallout 3 character, wherein I started off the campaign doing a bunch of evil shit. And then I became, goody two shoes because I felt like being goody two shoes. And I wrote this character as someone who was conflicted with I've done some really, really fucking bad shit, but I'm trying to do good again. Dalen is definitely that character. He recognizes he did evil, despite wanting to be a good person, even when he was doing the evil. And now he knows he's damned for hell. Like he knows hell. He knows hell's coming. He knows hell is going to drag him down. Sooner or later, hell's going to cut him down. But he still wants to try to leave the world a better place than he was. Then he left it. And so it's going to take a. I mean, he really can't. Like there is no redemption for Dalen Damaris. Absolutely no redemption for Dalen Damaris. Too many bodies. Too many bastards whelped upon girls that weren't exactly old enough to give informed consent. Too many political institutions completely and absolutely erased. Too many genetic lineages wiped out like that. Too many atrocities committed. And so, but again, the book never tries to say that that he can be redeemed, that his soul will ever go to heaven. Rather, the book says that, yeah, he's willing to do some good work. Let him cook, let him do good. And it posits that question and it handles that question very well. I do wish that Shad had a beta reader or like someone who could have like been a no man because like one of the biggest criticisms that I've seen about this book is that it reads like a fetish novel. And I can I've read some actual like fetish fan fiction and I've read like an actual fetish novel in the form of the Flame Dragon Knight and no this is not that bad. This is not a fetish novel. Uh I do believe based on this book that Shad is sexually repressed. Oh bro, you don't even want to know. You don't you hold on. Hold on. I'm grabbing something. Um Yeah. Okay. So Suka Nuka, Super Suka Blet. Hi, man. Uh, you're probably a fan of Berserk like I am. Never pick this up. Never get this. The Flame Dragon Knight book. No, never get this. It is garbage. This is an actual fetish novel. This is okay. I need to explain what I'm talking about. So the main accusation that people raise against Shadow of the Conqueror, which I absolutely think is bullshit, is that it is Shad giving into his like sexual perversions, that he is putting his sexual fantasies onto the book. That is not what's happening. That is absolutely not what is happening. The two big instances I can think of are, Dalen having a harem of not legal by Japanese standards. No, okay, I'll get. I got this. Okay, no. So Suka, I got this because I heard, oh hey, there's a spin-off novel for Berserk about Grunbeld, which is a character that's pretty cool. I like Grunbeld. I want to know more about Grunbeld. Let me pick this up. Okay, I picked it up and I'm reading it. Okay, this isn't, Miura probably could have done better. Miura could definitely have done better, but this is okay, this is dark fantasy. Yeah, that makes sense if that's happened. Okay, why are you having this character nonchalantly describe her childhood experience wherein a bunch of soldiers took advantage of a defenseless why are you graphically describing okay, yeah, no, this guy this is why Matt Walsh kind of has a point about anime. This is kind of why we probably shouldn't have dropped two bombs. We broke the Japanese. Uh, that is horrible. This is a mixture of people being too weak to see real evil. The two main criticisms against the whole fetish book argument. The first one is it is displaying Dalen as a cruel monster. Okay, no, Suka. No, that's absolutely not what happened. Okay, it's absolutely not what happened because Berserk is a mature novel. It's a mature manga. Yes, there are those aspects in Berserk, but it handles them maturely. This, I was expecting something similar. I was not expecting what I got, Suka. It is completely different. It's like it is unironically trying to find like trying to get the Guardians of the Galaxy film, ordering the Guardians of the Galaxy film, and then getting a porno version of it. Like that's basically what it is. Like that is legitimately what happened. I thought I was going to get a serious dark fantasy story about an individual being forced to succumb to it. Fortunately, no. Fortunately, there were no tentacles. There were no tentacles, Suka. Fortunately. Anyway, back to Shadow of the Conqueror. So Shad's goal with Dalen's reign as Dalus the Bastard, the Great Bastard, the Scourge of Nations, Dalus the Conqueror, titles, was to portray absolute human evil, like just the worst human possible, So the debate of can evil be redeemed have merit? Because okay, yes, he did these wars of conquest to end monarchies. Yes, he instituted a command and control economy to make sure that everyone was fed. Yes, he invented these horrible weapons of war that could kill thousands to keep his people from dying in that war zone. So, like, there's always you can always articulate that pretty much anything Dalen did was justifiable from that perspective. May not be morally good, but you can justify it. Just like, oh hey, you got a terrorist sitting in that building with a machine gun and he's gunning down your fucking guys as you're advancing up an alley. They can't get out. There's women and children in there, but who matters more, your soldiers or those women and children? In that instant, the commander hellfires that building, killing women and children, but also killing the terrorists, killing his men. It's a shitty situation, but you can understand the decision that was made, and it comes down to other people to decide. By adding in the element of Dalen having the element of Dalen, fuck, I don't even know, like, I can't really describe it on YouTube. Dalen having his own little Epstein harem. Let's phrase it like that. Dalen having his own Epstein harem is absolutely unexcusable. There is no defending that. And that is the point of why it was included in the story. Because you can defend wars of conquest. You can defend command and control economy. You can defend Geneva achievement list violating weapons of war. You cannot defend that. And then you can also not defend the callous way he would treat human life. Just tossing away retainers and people that would like serve him as if they were ammunition from a gun. So you need that element in order for Daedalus the Conqueror to really be this inexcusable bastard. To really hammer home that he is unredeemable, that he can never be a good person, that he will never see heaven. You cannot have that without the absolute worst parts of Daedalus the Conqueror. So from that angle, no, it is not fetish content. It is absolutely not fetish content. The other thing, and I think this is more of Shad just having edgy humor than actually being fetish content, is there is a culture of people that walk around naked consistently. And one of these individuals interacts with a more prudish woman, and consistently jokes with her about her wanting to engage with him because he is wearing, by his standards, conservative clothing, but by the standards of every other civilization, very provocative clothing. And it's clearly like that is clearly solely there for a joke that is done too many times. And it's clear that Shad has a very specific sense of humor that I kind of share in a Discord call the first time. It wasn't my favorite joke. It wasn't my favorite character, gonna be honest. But yeah. Anyway, so back to Dalen. So Dalen, as I've described, was this just horrible human being, this absolute just disgusting, worthless piece of garbage that gets off scot-free. He escapes. He goes off and he's living in like this little corner of the world where no one's gonna find him, no one knows who he is, and he lives. Time is what kills him, not the hammer of justice, not the angry innocence that he caused the suffering of, not some Inquisition death squad. Time is what was killing him. And so he decides, I'm going to go out my own way, and he attempts to commit the most epic seppuku in the history of epic seppukus of this world. He's taken basically like stable uranium, and he's jumping into a magical barrier. And apparently, by doing stable uranium, jumping down a barrier, it makes you 20 again and gives you magic superpowers. And so he lands. He's got like this happy vigor of, oh, I'm alive again. Oh, I'm alive again. Blah 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 blah. And then comes to the realization, I'm fucking alive again. I wanted to die. I do not want to be alive. I do not deserve to be alive because of the evil I have done. And then he realizes, hang on, I've got my intelligence. I've got my martial skill. I've got this body and I've got magic. I can be a hero. Well, at the very least, I can do some good. A little good, a little bad, fuck around a little bit. And that's basically his goal. His goal is to do good as best he can do good. And you find yourself and you find him having to navigate a world where people are looking for him because 20-year-old coming out of nowhere with the kind of knowledge and skills that he has is not possible, should not be possible. Having to navigate all of the suffering and pain he inflicted upon the world, and having to find and deal with people who praise him because even men as evil as Stalin have fanboys. What is this one? No, that's a thing. So yeah, that is a thing. Anyway, so yeah, Shadow of the Conqueror, not as good as England's Martyr. England's Martyr, if you got $20 and you got to pick between them, England's Martyr, go England's Martyr all the way. This is still a very solid book. It is a very good book. It deals with a lot of very good moral questions. It's very well. The world is very well thought out. Most of the characters are very interesting. It's very clearly Shad's first novel. I mean, to be fair, can you really call a soy boy? Okay, first of all, Suka, what is a girl? Second of all, can you really call soy boys boys by the standard definition? So we're gonna put it down in the middle and say fanboys. Next up, a book I just finished a couple of days ago, Halo: The Fall of Reach. For context, I'm 20, and so there's a lot of classic books I have yet to read. I still have a copy of like all the Cthulhu books or all of Lovecraft's works. There's a certain squid out there. There's a certain squid who's probably going to be throttling me because I have failed to read the works of H.P. Lovecraft. But so here we go. Halo: The Fall of Reach. Dude, let's go, Suka. Let's go, my Nuka. Let's go, Suka. It's a very good book, Suka. Very good book. For those who don't know, it basically details the creation, training, and early career of the Master Chief. Yes, that Master Chief. Yes, Suka, it was. Um, during the Covenant War. It's a very good backstory, Suka. It is a very good backstory. It is a very solid backstory. But yeah, so so you're following John 117, Sierra 117, through his and various like side characters like Dr. Halsey, Captain Keys, and a bunch of other people like that. Yeah, and then you've got like all the other the other soldiers from like the first game, as well as like a bunch of the other Spartans that they introduce for later lore. Yeah, it's a very, very solid, very good read. It's a very good origin story, and it also establishes a lot of like very good it is very technical. It's okay. There's like three different thoughts going around in my mind right now. This is what this wanted to be. This is what this wanted to be. This is a story about a main character whose existence and continued existence is an absolute like moral conundrum, and it is an incredibly technical breakdown of the world building, of how things work in the world, of how fights happen, of the characters themselves. But it is like, yeah, it's 100 short. It's 100 pages shorter than this, and it is significantly more mature than this. So, um, what do I mean by that? Well, so the Spartans themselves are children that were abducted. They were not soldiers that were conscripted. They were not orphans that were like they were children who were identified due to genetic aptitude for Project Orion, and then were proceeded to be abducted from colony worlds. Not Earth. They weren't Earth children. They weren't Venusian children. They weren't Martian children. They weren't core children. They were the frontier. They were the undesirables, the dredge of society, who had the genetic potential to be Spartans. And 75 of them were grabbed up and taken, and at 6 years old, put through the equivalent of SEAL team training, only with significantly fewer civil rights being applied as they were actively beaten. Brutally beaten. And yeah, so the Spartans were groomed into absolute physical perfection of their genetic potential, and they were raised with very, very high intellectual aptitudes. Then they underwent in immense genetic augmentation as well as physiological augmentation to render them into super weapons. Half of these abducted children that were raised to be killers without consent, without informed consent of them or their parents, died in the process or were crippled so horribly that they could not fulfill their original intention, which was to, fight. Oh, and by the way, this was not to fight the Covenant yet. The Covenant weren't a thing yet. This was just to put down secessionists that just didn't want to be governed by Earth. Yeah, just making sure that's known. Again, this is like the moral question being raised. Are these 75 children that were abducted, are their lives worth more than the millions that would die in such a conflict? I don't know. You tell me. You tell me. It's a very interesting conundrum. But so then, don't worry though. We don't need to consider the nature of those outer colonies seceding because they're exterminated. Oh, the Covenant come out of the void like a wrecking ball, and just all moral questions about the Spartans can be forgotten because we need them. Why do we need them? They are horrible. They are terrifying. By the way, remember again, the Spartans, the children that were abducted, were made to basically stop the American Revolution. So, okay, actually, Alfred, you may think that's based. You may think that's wait, Suka's Canadian. Okay, you two chucklefucks may think that's based. Me as an American, if my kinsmen lost their children and then they were turned into unfeeling automaton war machine demon monsters and then sicked back on us to minimize British casualties, eh, you know, I'm not a fan. But it's okay because they're really cool in the games. In the games, they're really freaking cool, so it doesn't matter. But so the Covenant come out of nowhere, and you get some really, really freaking good space battles. I loved reading these space battles, and I wish I reading this makes me love the idea of a Halo show and makes me loathe the Halo show. Oh, dude, don't even get me started about the Mjolnir armor. Having read this, anyone that thinks a Space Marine from Warhammer is faster than a Spartan, you're dumb. You are incredibly like literally the movements of a Spartan are actually at the speed of thinking. Like literally, they want the arm up, the arm is up. Like actually, like the arm is actually up. Okay, Suka, I've only seen the first 20 minutes of the first episode of season one. Um, there was a wooden prop for a plasma pistol that was not painted, and the shot of it getting kicked away, it turned into CGI. Also the attack on the rebel colony did not have grunts, did not have jackals, did not have brutes, did not have hunters, did not have engineers. No, what it did have is it was just elites. The things that no one could report seeing throughout the entire war. Well, of course not, Suka. They should never show the face of Master Chief. Because Master Chief, ignore the description in this book, boys and girls. Ignore the fact that he is described with brown hair and I believe green eyes. Master Chief, Halsey was given all the tools she needed to make the super soldier, and she made a blue-haired. No, wait. I ruined the joke. Oh. But yeah, so it sets up with like that moral conundrum of like the children being trained, and you have to think, okay, is this good? Is this bad? And Halsey hammers that home repeatedly. Am I actually a monster? Am I a bad person? Do I even get the? Do I even have the? Do I even have the breathing room to even think about myself as a monster? Then the Covenant hit, and no one cares where the Spartans came from because they get shit done. The Spartans get shit done, and they do very, very well for themselves, taking out armies, taking out ships. But even with the Spartans being the demons that the Covenant call them, wasn't enough. Was not enough. They could win on the ground. They could win a fleet engagement with 3-1 odds, but worlds linked out. Blip, blip, blip. And it just gets worse when the Covenant get a solid identification on the second most important world in Halo, in the Halo franchise, the world of Reach, the primary military ground for the not the Covenant, for the UNSC, their primary shipyard outside of Earth, and the home of the Spartans. And when the Covenant commit to a major operation, they fucking commit. Yeah. Solid fucking read. Very, very good book. Very solid. What else is a good book? The Holy Bible. But yeah, so if I had to do like a rank, if I had to like go, okay, which book is like the best? I'm gonna say just because you get more bang for your buck, England's Martyr is absolutely at the front because you get way more bang for your buck. Close behind it because it's so fucking good. Fall of Reach, Shadow of the Conqueror, last, unfortunately. Again, I like Shad. I like Shad's content. I like the book, but Shad really, his next project better have a good beta reader. Otherwise, it's probably going to be, yeah. Also, wait, no, not also, yeah. So with that, I mean, unless you guys have any specific questions about the books, Alfred, if you want like any specific feedback, Suka. That would be funny, Suka. Uh, yeah, that'd be fucking amazing. That'd be a good novel. Yeah, that'd be a good novel, Suka. Suka, write the novel. Write the novel in Russian, Suka. Do it. But yeah, so I just finished reading Tower of Swallows for the Witcher books. I'm gonna do like a full Witcher series review once I'm done with that. I'm gonna have to reread the earlier books and other thing, but my next reading project. This is gonna be fun. This is gonna be a lot of fun. The American war in Afghanistan. I'm gonna have to reread these two books though. Before I mean they're not really books, they're more like treatises, but I'll have to reread these before I read this. Yeah, history book. Because I am a narcissistic jackass, Suka. Yes, it's a history book, and I'm a narcissistic jackass. And I believe that between these two books, 7 Seconds to Die and Counterinsurgency Warfare by Galula, I can articulate exactly what went wrong with this. I mean, we never officially declared war, so technically it wasn't a war. It was more of a kerfuffle, a mild kerfuffle in the Afghani Highlands. No, that's insult. It was a war. It was objectively a war. We just got around the legal rules to call it a war. But yeah. So, yeah. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about? Any questions you got for me about books? Any things you want to talk about? If not, I'm gonna. You guys probably got better things to be doing, so I'll be ending the stream here. And I'll give you guys a couple seconds for the lady catch up. Thank you all for showing up. Thank you, Gunsmoke, Gunsmoke Malone, Bones Malone. Thank you, Rez. Rez, I love you, Rez. You're a great person, Rez. Alfred, like I said, thank you. Thank you. Your book was amazing. And of course, Suka Nuka. Okay, look, Suka, we could, you say false flag. I say I'm not a mirror. I'm not a paralegal. I can't spin that. Anyway, later, y'all. Have a good one. Bro, oh no, now I feel bad. Oh, it's oh damn, I feel bad. Well, thanks for showing up, man. Thanks for showing up and listening to my horrible ramblings. Yeah, I can't wait for your next book, man. Cheerio, bruv. Oh, have a pint with the missus for me. I'm gonna. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, man. I'm just gonna end.